the small hand in the dark. The theater lights dimmed, slowly casting a soft golden glow across the crowd. People leaned back in their seats, rustling snack bags and whispering as the trailers began to roll among them. Seated quietly in the far back row, wearing a simple hoodie and jeans, was Keanu Reeves. No one seemed to notice him. That's how he liked it. Just another man alone. The crowd watching a movie in peace. It had been a long week on set, and this was his way to unwind. Alone, anonymous, with a big bag of buttery popcorn and a gentle silence he rarely found. He glanced to his left. The seat beside him was empty. On his right, a young mother held a daughter barely 2 years old. On her lap, the child wore a tawny pink hoodie with bunny ears, and her shoes lit up every time she kicked her feet. She was fidgety, her wide eyes bouncing from the screen to the crowd, then to the snack in her mother's hand. The mother looked tired, really tired, dark circles under her eyes, hair in a messy bun, like she'd rushed out of the house just to give her little girl a moment of joy. Keanu noticed it all. He always noticed people, not just their faces, but their emotions, their energy. The movie began with a loud boom. The toddler jumped, startled, then giggled and clapped. Timothy smiled weakly, trying to keep her daughter still without ruining the fun. Keanu kept his eyes on the screen, but out of the corner of his eye, he saw the little girl lean forward. Her tiny fingers reached out slowly, like she was moving through space. Then, as casually as could be, she grabbed a big handful of his popcorn and stuffed it into her mouth. Keanu froze. He looked down at her chubby cheeks full of popcorn, then at the mother, her eyes wide, horrified. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, sir. I wasn't looking. She's just, I'm so sorry." But Keanu didn't get angry. He didn't even frown. Instead, he smiled, leaned toward the little girl, and whispered, "It's okay. You have good taste." She blinked, then smiled at him, giggling again like she understood the joke. She reached for more. This time, Keanu tilted the bag toward her. Timothy tried to stop her daughter again, but Keanu gently shook his head. "Please let her enjoy it. It's just popcorn and she's adorable." The woman looked stunned. Tears welled up in her eyes, though she blinked them away quickly. "Thank you. You're very kind. It's been a rough day, week." Actually, Keanu just nodded. He didn't press for details, but in that quiet moment he felt something shift. He didn't come to the theater to talk either. He was sharing popcorn with a 2-year-old stranger and comforting a woman who looked like she was about to fall apart. He didn't know why, but something about the moment felt important. The girl kept stealing popcorn through the movie, giggling and reaching like it was the funniest game ever. Timothy began to relax a little, and Keanu, sitting in the dim glow of the theater, felt something stir in his chest. It wasn't just about kindness, it was about timing, fate, presence. He was meant to sit in that seat tonight after the movie ended. The lights came up, people began to leave. The mother gathered her things quickly. "Boris, thank you again." She whispered, "My name's Emily, and this monster is..." Keanu knelt slightly and smiled at Clara. "You have a powerful pawn game, Clara." The girl clapped and squealed. Emily laughed for the first time that night. Then she looked at him more closely, her eyes squinted. "Waiter, you..." Keanu held up a finger to his lips. "She's just a guy who loves movies." Emily smiled. "Right. Just a guy." As they walked out of the theater, Keanu found himself trailing behind them, not because he was watching, but because he didn't feel ready to leave yet, not entirely. And as they stepped outside into the cool night air, he overheard Emily speaking softly into her phone. "We can't stay another night at the motel," she said. "I don't have enough. I'll figure something out." Her voice cracked. Keanu stopped walking, his breath caught in his throat. The words hit him like a punch to the chest. Clara tugged on her mother's hand, asking for more popcorn. Emily smiled at her daughter, trying to keep her voice light. They began to walk away, but Keanu stood frozen in place between the invisible lines of kindness and hesitation. He had no right to interfere, but could he walk away now, knowing what he just heard? His fingers clenched the empty popcorn bag. He took a slow step forward, then another, and just as Emily reached the corner, a voice called gently behind her, "Emily, wait." She turned, surprised. Keanu Reeves was standing there with a quiet look in his eyes that said more than words ever could. He wasn't done. Not yet. What will Keanu do next? What is his real reason for following them? A promise in the parking lot. Emily hesitated, her arms instinctively wrapping around Clara as she turned to face him under the flickering streetlight. Keanu stood with the crumpled popcorn bag still in hand, his expression calm but deeply focused. He wasn't just being polite. He had something on his mind, and she could feel it. Clara, still unaware of any tension, wiggled in her mother's arms and pointed at Keanu with a giggle. "Popcorn man." Emily smiled weakly and sure of what to say. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice unsure. Like Simeon, used to being let down and bracing for the next moment of discomfort, Keanu took a step forwardsly and respectfully, then crouched a little to meet Clara at eye level. "You made my night better, Clara," he said softly. Then he looked up at Emily. "And I heard what you said on the phone. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I couldn't just walk away." Emily's face turned red, her eyes darted toward the ground. That wasn't meant for any O'Neills to hear." "I know," Keanu said gently, "but sometimes the right people hear things when they need to." He paused as if measuring his next words. "Carefully, not trying to intrude, but if you need help, even just a place to stay at night, I can arrange something safe. Not in a weird way, not in a celebrity doinga favor way, just human to human." Emily's eyes filled with tears and shook her head. "I appreciate it really, but people always offer and then change their mind when they realize what they're getting into." Keanu's eyes softened. "Then let me be the one who doesn't change his mind." Emily bit her lip, glancing down at Clara, who was now tugging on her shoelaces, oblivious to the weight of the moment. "It's not just about tonight. We've been staying at a motel for 5 days. My card was declined this morning. I was going to sleep in Necker with her tonight. I didn't want to tell anyone." Keanu exhaled, pain flickering behind his eyes. "Not pity, something deeper, something familiar." "You don't have to tell me everything now," he said, "but let me help you. Breathe just for one night. Let's start there." Emily stared at him for a long moment. It was hard to trust anyone these days, especially strangers, but somehow there was something in his tone, his posture, his restraint, something earnest. "What did you have in mind?" she finally asked. Still guarded, Keanu pulled out his phone. "I know a quiet little guest house not far from here. They keep things private, and they're used to last-minute guests. You'll have your own space, hot meals, and a warm bed for Clara. No questions asked." Emily looked like she wanted to believe him, and after a few seconds, she nodded. "Just one night for her." Keanu smiled for her. They walked together toward their parking lot. Emily's car, an old hatchback with a cracked rear window and scattered stuffed animals inside, sat tucked in the far corner under a tree. Keanu glanced at it silently, but said nothing. Instead, he made a quick call, keeping his voice calm and discreet. Within 10 minutes, he had a room ready for Emily and under another name with a note for staff to prepare something warm for the little girl. As they pulled into Thedriff Way of the guest house, a soft light from the porch cast a gentle glow across the lawn. Clara had fallen asleep in her mother's arms. Emily carried her carefully, trying not to wake her up, and Keanu walked quietly beside them. Hadn't asked questions, didn't push, he just made sure. They got inside safely. The woman at the front desk handed over the room key with a warm smile. "You'll be staying in our garden suite," she said kindly. "We've left some snacks for the little one in the room. Feel free to call down if you need anything." Emily turned to Keanu before stepping inside. "You didn't have to do all this." "Maybe," Keanu said softly, "but maybe the world becomes a better place when we do the things we don't have to." Her eyes well again, and for the first time that evening, she didn't fight the tears. She just nodded and whispered, "Thank you." Keanu stood on the porch for a moment after the door closed. He looked up at the night sky, remembering a time in his own life when a stranger had done something similar for him long before the fame, long before the world knew his name. Back then, he'd been a drifting young man full of grief and confusion, and someone had shown him mercy when he least expected it. Now, years later, maybe this was his way of giving that moment back, but as he turned to leave, he had no idea that the next day would bring something he couldn't have imagined, something that would pull him deeper into Emily and Clara's lives, in ways far beyond popcorn or kindness. Past was catching up to someone, and it wasn't him who was Emily rallying from. And what secret from her past is about to surface with Kennicott in the middle? The knock before dawn. The morning air was still and heavy, the kind that holds silence like a breath inside the garden suite. Sunlight crept slowly across the wooden floor, painting golden lines through the thin curtains. Emily lay curled on the cush beside the bed, where Clara slept peacefully, arms sprawled like wings, a half-eaten cookie clutched in one tiny hand. The peaceful scene looked like it belonged to someone else's life. Too quiet, too soft, too safe. But Emily hadn't truly slept. She had closed her eyes. Yes, but sleep never came easy anymore. Too many nights of watching over her daughter in cars, in ramats, in parking lots that stank of oil and fear. Too many moments of hearing footsteps and holding her breath, waiting to see if someone meant harm or just passed by. Every creak, every echo, every gust of wind had become something to fear, and this place, thawkened and clean and warm, was no different until the knock came. It wasn't loud, it wasn't aggressive, just 2 gentle taps against the wooden. Dr. Emily sat up in an instant, heart racing. She clutched Clara's small bag beside her, where her few belongings were folded with care. Toothbrush, a small blanket, 3 sets of clothes, and a photo tucked between them, crisp and faded one she hadn't looked at in months. The knock came again. Emily rose slowly and padded across the room, pressing her eye to Theppy Foley. It was Keanu. She let out a long breath, unlocking the door carefully. "Is everything okay?" she whispered. Keanu stood with a paper bag in one hand and a coffee cup in the other. "I brought breakfast," he said simply. "They were just putting out fresh croissants." She blinked, thrown by his casual tone. "You didn't thave too?" "I know," he said, stepping inside after she nodded, "but I figured Clara might like a treat when she wakes up. And you look like you could use a quiet morning." Emily managed a tired smile, then sat back down as he placed the bag on the table. "Thank you." Keanu glanced around the room. It was neat, organized, yet he saw the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes flicked toward the window now and then. He sat across from her and leaned forward slightly. "Can I ask you something?" he said gently. Emily nodded without looking at him. "Who's looking for you?" Her hands froze in midair. The question hit her like a whisper in the dark, and for a moment she didn't know whether to answer or run. She swallowed hard and set the coffee down slowly. "A man," she said, her voice low. "He's Clara's father, not by choice, not by heart, just by blood. He didn't want us, not when she was born, not when I begged for help, but when he got into trouble, real trouble, he came back and he wanted to use us." Keanu didn't interrupt, wanted to put Clara's name on things, hide assets, pretend to be a family, so heckled look clean in court. And when I refused, he took everything we had, drained the account, cancelled cards, locked me out of our place. While we were at the store, she looked up, then ice fierce, but tired. We'd been running ever since. Keanu sat back, processing every word. "Why didn't you go to the police?" Emily let out a dry laugh. "I did, and he did what men like him do." He smiled. "He had documents, lawyers' recordings. He made me look unstable, emotional, paranoid, and I realized Theodore doesn't always protect the quiet ones." Keanu looked down for a long moment, then slowly he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something, a small, smooth black card. He slid it across the table to her. "This is for emergencies," he said. "No questions asked. You won't need to explain anything, but if things get dangerous again, you call the number on the back and someone will come." Emily stared at it like it was a grenade. "What? Is this a favor?" he said quietly. "From someone I trust." Before she could respond, Clara stirred on the bed and sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Mama," she mumbled. Emily was at her side. In an instant, "I'm here, baby." Clara's eyes brightened when she saw Keanu. "Man," she squealed. He smiled wide. "I brought clisisons today." She clapped with delight. The moment broke tension, and Emily allowed herself to laugh. Real laughter, light and shaky, but the first time in weeks, maybe months, she felt like she wasn't fighting alone. But that peace wouldn't last, because across town, in a sleek black car parked just outside a courthouse, a man with slicked back hair and cold eyes scrolled through his phone. He paused at a blurry photo taken the night before a parking lot, a guest house season barely visible in the frame. He zoomed in, narrowing his eyes at the silhouette of a man helping a woman and child from a car he didn't recognize. The woman not yet, but the man beside her thought face. He knew Keanu Reeves. He said aloud, venom in his tone. "Well, that changes things." He made a call, and just like that, the peace was broken. The man from Emily's past is coming, and he's not alone. But who tipped him off? And why is Keanu now a target himself? The shadow beneath the name Thyssen had risen fully now, casting light across the rooftops and painting warm colors into the streets below. The city bustled with its usual rhythm, cars honking, people rushing with coffee cups in hand, conversations flowing like thetid. But inside the guesthouse suite, a different kind of silence hung between Emily and Keanu. The kind of silence that comes after truth is spoken, fragile, raw, heavy. Keanu had stayed longer than he meant to. He sat on the edge of the room watching Clara nibble on her croissant crumbs, sticking to her cheeks as she hummed to herself. Every sound she made was soft, innocent, untouched by the chaos looming just outside the door. But Emily couldn't relax. Her hands shook slightly as she packed up the few clothes had used. Her eyes flicked toward the window every few minutes, as if expecting someone to materialize from the air. "You think we should move again?" Keanu said quietly, not a question, an understanding. Emily nodded. "It's only a matter of time. Hellways finds us. I don't know how, but he does." Keanu stood and stepped closer, speaking carefully. You shouldn't have to run anymore, not with a child, note after everything. She looked up at him. What are you suggesting? We stop running, he said. We confront this head on with the right help. The right people. I can't force you, but I've got contacts, ones who don't answer to money or titles. Just as Simile's lips parted to respond. But just then her phone buzzed on the table. She moved fast, picking it up before Clara could notice the screen. Lit up with an unknown number. Her fingers tightened around the phone. Keanu saw her reaction. Whoa. Is it? She didn't answer. She pressed it to her ear, the voice on the other end was slow and deliberate. Emily, you've made things complicated. It was him. You're dragging strangers into this now, movie stars and pity parties. Keanu couldn't hear the words, but he could see the blood drain from her face. She dropped the phone, her hands trembling. Keanu picked it up, held it to his ear and said, if you ever call her again, you'll regret it. A chuckle came through the speaker. And who are you? The popcorn fairy isn't your problem, Reeves, unless you want to make it your problem. Keanu stared at the screen, then he placed the phone down. Slowly, he knows him. Here, he knows my name. Emily sank into the couch. He's watching. Keanu didn't hesitate. He stepped outside onto the porch and scanned the street. Cars passed by, people walked their dogs, but one car stood out, black, idling near the end of the road, windows tinted just dark enough. He memorized its plate in subconscious instincts, honed over years of working on dangerous film sets and navigating public life under scrutiny. He stepped back inside and closed the door. Gently, we're leaving, he said. Now, Emily didn't argue. She scooped up Clara, who clutched her toy bunny, still unaware of the storm building outside. They exited through the rear entrance, avoiding the street. Keanu led them through alleyways, through a side parking lot, and into a quiet garage where his old black motorcycle waited beneath a cover. It wasn't a car, it wasn't discreet, but it was fast, faster than any shadow that might be chasing them. We'll head to a safe house, he said as he handed her a helmet. It's not far. No one but my closest friend knows about it, and he's someone who's protected people a lot scarier than your ex. As the engine roared to life, Emily held Clara tight in her arms and clung to Keanu's back. Wind whipped through their clothes as they disappeared into the traffic, weaving through lanes like ghosts. Meanwhile, the man in the black car watched the guest house door open again, but no one came out. He stepped from the car, jaw clenched, and walked inside. The woman at the front desk smiled politely. Can I help you? I'm looking for a woman. Emily with a child, checked in last night. The receptionist tilted her head. I'm sorry, sir, but we don't give out guest information. He placed a $100 bill on the counter. Even for this, she had then pushed the bill back. I'm sorry. He leaned in closer, voice dripping with threat. You sure about that? A deep voice behind him answered before she could speak. She's sure. The man turned to see a tall figure step forward from the hallway, broad-shouldered, with a calm yet dangerous presence. It was someone Keanu had called 20 minutes earlier. The man didn't speak again. He left, but he wasn't on. Not by far, because as the sun climbed higher in the sky and Keanu's motorcycle sped away with Emily and Clara clinging tightly, another call was being made. A call to someone even more dangerous. Someone who didn't care about names or fame or mercy. There on he said into the phone, the girl's with him, and I want them both. Keanu may have escaped the first trap, but someone new has joined the hunt. Demean, with no rules. Will they find the safe house before it's too late? The man behind the gate, the safe house, sat at the edge of a quiet cliffside far beyond the noise of the city. A long winding road led to its hidden entrance, guarded not by cameras or high-tech fences, but by something stronger: loyalty. Keanu had only ever brought to people here before, both in moments when the world became too heavy to bear. This place wasn't just a retreat, it was a fortress of peace wrapped in the scent of pine and the hush of waves crashing far below. As the motorcycle slowed at the rusted iron gate, a tall figure out from the shadows. His face was lined with age, but his stance was firm. He wore a flannel shirt, jeans, and boots caked with mud. His eyes, though, told stories too many to count. This was Marcus, ex-military off-grid, one of the few people Keanu trusted. Without question, Keanu nodded as they dismounted. She's in trouble, and the kid's in the middle of it. Marcus gave Emily a quick glance, then looked at Clara, who held her beneath close. He didn't ask questions, didn't demand explanations. He sipped and opened the gate. Come in, he said. Inside, the house was warm and quiet. Walls were lined with books, maps, and old photographs. There was no luxury, no excess, only tools, firewood, and the hum of wind against the windows. Emily looked around slowly, her body still tense, but something in the air made her breathe easier. Clara ran to the corner where a stack of blankets sat, folded like clouds. She buried herself in them with a laugh. "You'll be safe here," Keanu said gently. "Marcus knows how to disappear people." Marcus grunted, "Only the good ones." Emily sat down on the edge of a bench and let her head drop into her hands for the first time in days. She let the silence hold her. Keanu stood near the fireplace watching her with quiet concern. "Yoka?" he asked. She nodded, "Just trying to believe this is real, that I'm not dreaming it." "You're not," he said, "but we still have to be smart." He turned to Marcus. "There's a man, dangerous, manipulative, well-connected. He wants her back under his control. He's already tracking us." Marcus nodded slowly. "And he knows your name now." Keanu looked down. "He does? Then we've got a problem." As they spoke, the storm that had been brewing in the distance began to roll in clouds, turning darker by the hour. Outside, rain tapped against the windows, and the wind picked up, whispering through the trees like ghosts. Passing by that night, Keanu barely slept. He stayed near the window, eyes scanning the woods, fingers rapidarin, a warm mug of tea. Marcus had reinforced the locks, set motion sensors, and placed an old rifle by the door. Emily lay beside Clara on a makeshift bed in the guest room, whispering stories into her daughter's ear, trying to drown out the sound of the wind. But just after midnight, something shifted. Keanu's ear caught it first, a rustle too controlled, too deliberate to be the wind. He stood instantly, motioning to Marcus without a word. The older man moved like a shadow zealot. An alert, they stepped outside into the storm, rain soaking their clothes within seconds. Near the back of the property, a low crunch broke through the wind. Marcus pointed toward the tree. Simeon was there. Keanu moved fast. They circled around through the woods, hearts pounding, eyes sharp. Then they saw him, a tall man dressed in dark clothes, holding something in his hand. Not a weapon, a camera he was taking pictures through a long lens aimed directly at the window where Clara had fallen asleep. Keanu didn't hesitate. He stepped forward. "Hey!" The man turned in a flash and ran. Marcus was faster. With a single sweep of his arm, he knocked the man off balance and slammed him to the ground. Keanu grabbed that camera and flipped through the images. There were dozens. Emily, Clara, Thelison's plate from the guest house, even a shot of Keanu on the motorcycle. "Who sent you?" Keanu demanded. The man sneered. "You already know." Keanu's fist clenched. "I'm just the first wave." The man continued. "He's sending others, professionals. This time not babysitter." Marcus looked at Keanu. "We've got to move now, back inside." They woke Emily, who rose with a jolt. Clara stirred, confused, clutching her bunny tighter. Keanu knelt beside them. "We've been found, but we've got one more move, one that ends." Emily's voice was barely above a whisper. How Keanu's expression changed. Not anger, not afraid, resolved by showing the world who he really is and making sure it can't be buried. Marcus opened a wooden drawer and pulled out a hard drive. "I've been building something. Hesed Records reports surveillance from people like him. It's not admissible, I court, but it's loud enough to get attention, and sometimes that's all you need." Keanu looked at Emily. "Do you still have the picture of Clara's birth certificate, the one he tried to Irakish?" Nodded slowly. "It's in Clara's bag." "Good," Keanu said, "because tomorrow we're bring the truth into the light. No more hiding." Emily looked at him, eyes full of fear and hope. "What if he silences us before we do?" Keanu gave her a soft smile. "Ethan, we'll scream louder. The trap is set, the evidence is gathered, and the final confrontation is coming. But can Keanu and Emily survive what's about to be unleashed? Or will them on there running from strike first before the world hears the truth, louder than silence? The next morning broke, not with peace but with purpose. The rain had passed, but its mud along the trail, leaves stuck to boots, and a heavy dampness in the air inside. The safe house, a storm, a fan of the kind, had begun to take shape, a storm of choices, of truth, of courage. Keanu stood over the dining table, wires running across the wood. The hard drive Marcus had guarded for years to a small secure laptop. Beside it lay a stack of photographs, each one documenting a system of abuse, intimidation, and manipulation, all tied back to one man, Emily's ex, and now the man who had turned his attention to destroying not just her life, but anyone who stood between him and control. Emily sat quietly in the corner, Clara on her lap, gently brushing the little girl's hair. Her hands moved with care, but her eyes never left the screeners. More files appeared, legal documents, forged contracts, backroom footage, second of evidence. People were threatened to forget, the kind that never made it into court. But that was about to change. Marcus stepped into the room and placed an envelope on the table. I contacted 2 journalists I trust. They owe me. They'd been trying to bring this guy down for years, but never had the proof until now. Keanu turned his face calm, but focus it. Send them everything. We give them permission to use every image, every file, every voice clip, and we do it. Toady. Marcus nodded. Already uploading to a secure drive. Emily looked up. If we do this, he won't just disappear. He'll fight back. He's not afraid of jail. He's afraid of being humiliated. Keanu walked to her side. That's why we do it publicly, live in front of millions. Before he has time to silence us, he paused. I've arranged something, and he had by noon. Keanu had used every contact he'd ever earned through years in the industry, not for a favor, not for fame, but for something far more important, a platform. That afternoon a live stream appeared across the internet, without warning, no trailers, no announcements, no celebrity promotions, just a title, A Mother's Story. They tried to bury, hosted by Keanu Reeves. The screen faded in slowly. Keanu sat at a wooden table, the safe house behind him, no lights, no camera polish. Just truth, he began quietly, his voice clear and calm. Sometimes the greatest stories are the ones happening right beside us, stories of courage, of survival, of silence broken. He told Emily's story not as a headline, not as a victim's tale, but as a journey. A mother abandoned a child, threatened Damon, returning not to make amends, but to use them as tools. He showed voice messages read, court filings, and then Emily appeared. She sat beside him, her hand on Clara's back. Her voice shook at first, but as the words came they grew stronger. She spoke of fear, of betrayal, of the nights sleeping in cars, of the time she almost gave up, and finally of the popcorn, the small moment of kindness that became the spark of something greater. The internet exploded. Hashtags lit up every platform. News stations paused their broadcasts. Celebrities, advocates, and everyday people reshared the live stream with a single phrase: no more hiding. But as the world leaned in, so did the danger. In a dark office, far away, the man watched with fury. He threw a glass against the wall. His empire, carefully built on lies and silence, was crumbling in real time. Made a call, find them now, but it was too late. As the video passed 1 million views, law enforcement reopened closed files. Whistleblowers forward, and by nightfall the man who had hunted Emily for so long was surrounded in his high-rise office by agents with federal badges. Meanwhile, back at the safe house, Emily received a message from the journalist. He's been arrested. Financial crimes. Reporting. Will be publishing part 2 of the story tomorrow. It's over. Emily stared at the screen, her fingers trembling. Keanu stood nearby watching her. Carefully. You did this, he said. You stood up. You didn't run. She looked at him, tears in her eyes, and whispered, we did this. Outside, Clara chased a butterfly across the field, laughing, her bunny flopping in her hand. Marcus grilled vegetables quietly on the back porch. The wind was calm. Now no shadows in the trees, no footsteps in the dark, just peace as the sun began to set, painting the sky in deep orange and violet. Emily stood beside Keanu and said softly, I've never known what a safe place felt like until now. Keanu smiled. Sometimes, Hesed, all it takes is a little popcorn.